Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of X-Men 97, Episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction Part 1. This was written by Bo DeMeo, so he is back, and it's written by Anthony Saletti, and this is directed by Chase Conley, who's already done a bunch of episodes and a great job at that. And this is exciting because it's the first part of a 3-part finale. Now, last week we didn't have anything new in the intro. This week we had Professor X return in the intro, even though we saw it in the first episode, but it's back here, so that was cool to see. And I think it's a new clip there of the Danger Room with Scott and Storm fighting practice Sentinels, but I am not totally sure. We might have already seen that clip already. Now, the episode starts with Cable doing target practice, and it's interesting that we learn that Bishop and Cable separated in the time stream and Cable entered the future alone, which is just crazy to think about, and I hope we see that, and I wonder what Bishop is up to during all of this. Now, Jean will comfort Scott and say that your son came back because he needs his father. Scott reflects then on never asking Professor X how to be a father because he was such a good father figure to him. And Jean has a great line, some lessons are taught, Scott, others are learned. So really good writing here, and it really sets the tone for this episode, because what I loved about this episode is there's such good writing throughout, but really good pace and some really good action. But I thought this was my favorite episode so far of Jean and Scott in particular. Now, Cable informs the X-Men that the Prime Sentinels are created using that same techno-organic virus that Sinister we saw used on him as a baby, and that they can reproduce. And Cable's time, there was this Bastion's evolutionary war that lasted 300 years, so it leads to one of the best lines of the season where Morph says, "So another dystopia where Logan's the last to die." So good. But Cable explains it was actually a utopia, and that mutants were slaves and humans got these upgrades. It was cool seeing that they showed older Polaris. I like that. And it also runs well with the theme. We'll see by the end of the episode how things just go in a circle. They always go back to these awful things that happen to these mutants and these terrible decisions that humans make. Now, this is where Wolverine, rightfully so, gets angry. He's like, why didn't you stop Genosha? And Cable's like, I've tried. And his computer explains that every time they try to stop it, they're pulled away from that event. They mention the mystics that are in that Doctor Strange area, which is pretty cool. And I also really like that Jean sensed Madeline's joy when she saw Cable. I loved that moment originally in that episode. I'm happy they brought that back up, and I'm happy they're really leaning into giving us payoff with the setup of Jean and Madeline's complicated relationship, but showing us how much she senses Madeline here. And it works in this episode because it will be an effective way to make her bond stronger with Cable. Now, Cable says an interesting line that a rebel in my future got a lead on one of Bastion's facilities in your time. So I want to know what your theories are on who that rebel is he is talking about. So Cable rightfully wants to avenge his mother's death. Now, what's interesting is the X-Men see on the news that Xavier is alive, and it's spinned as the X-Men faked his death to gain sympathy. So this will obviously piss off the X-Men, especially Wolverine, and this is all part of Bastion's plan to ruin their image again. Now, I was confused at first because I was like, why aren't they shocked seeing Xavier alive? But we actually learned from a line from Jubilee later. She says, we were trying to keep you people for coming after the professor again. So they, at some point, were told by, I'm assuming, Lilandra, that Professor X was going to live, and that they eventually had got some kind of contact with him, or were just getting messages that he was alive and okay. So I hope that is, though, shown at some point, or a little more explanation of what really happened during that time, because it was kind of jarring to have it just be explained by a line from Jubilee. It might be the one thing in this episode I wasn't crazy about. Now we see William Stryker's on the news, and he's saying that this lying Xavier is going to bring alien army for Earth to suffer. So you're seeing again like all this spinning to make mutants look bad. And Sunspot's mom here really is just one of the biggest actual villains of this episode. She's like, I'm hosting a fundraiser for Genosha because the X-Men aren't doing anything. And I love when Jubilee is fighting with her that they have a little moment where Roberto's head is down, like that awful feeling where your girlfriend and your mom are fighting. Now, one of my favorite scenes was Jean feeling Madeline's memory so much, talking to Nightcrawler about this and how she felt Madeline's important conversation with Storm earlier in the season, but also Cable kicking in her stomach. And and that feeling of holding Cable when he was born and how perfect he was. And Nightcrawler's a great line. He says, "Does it matter if you heard his first cries if you remember how it felt to hear them?" Great writing here. And Nightcrawler will show her an example and back this up by saying how he let go of his past and simply was a family here with Rogue, not like something his mother Mystique would do to him. And he's saying that blood is blood, family is a choice. So this is really good too. So that's 2 episodes in a row. Nightcrawler's gotten some great dialogue and great counseling to his fellow X-Men. Now, we see Sinister again, and the big twist here is he is with Valerie Cooper. So traitor Valerie Cooper here. But what's interesting, this feels like Game of Thrones now, because you got these traitors like Valerie Cooper, but you also have everyone has their own plan and agenda. Like Sinister is saying he's using Bastion for pig pens of mutant test subjects. So at one moment, Bastion's in charge, but really secretly Sinister's in charge. By the end of this episode, you kind of realize like Bastion's plans already kind of failed. So Sinister's almost now more of a threat at the end of the day than Bastion. And on top of that, then Magneto's the bigger threat, which we're going to get to. But you got all these chess pieces moving across the board here, which makes it highly interesting. Now we see Magneto is bound up in an X, of course, and we see his tattoo, which means so much in the lore of Magneto and his past. And you see Val's talking to him, and she says he hasn't spoken a word since Genosha, and she's like, "I didn't know, I swear, I'm sorry for everything." And I love that close-up of Magneto. There's no words there. It just awakens the beast. He is so angry right now, and him facing Valerie. It's so crazy that she has the line at the end of the episode, Magneto was right. You know, really right about her, too. She's a prime example of a human who was supposed to be trusted and betrayed them. Now, when Jean, Scott, and Cable go to the lead that Cable brings to them, it is Sebastian's childhood home. And I love seeing the Stark Expo poster. And I also love seeing this Sentinel toy. Aw, I want one. Now, we also meet his mom. And you knew the minute you saw her that you're like, okay, she is going to be a Prime Sentinel for sure. But Jean senses from the drawing from his childhood, gets his backstory for us to see, really the audience. And we see that Nimrod infected his dad with Sentinel tech, and then that passed on to the mom. So he is this born machine and has Nimrod in him, but also then had Master Mold come into him. He's just this like whole piece of just Sentinel. And then we see Operation Zero Tolerance on these screens here. We get this wild cameo of Doctor Doom. I did not expect that. And we see Baron Zemo. And we get more explanation about these Prime Sentinels. You see that Bastion had this smart plan because he's like, we need something deadly but discreet, because the original Sentinels are so obvious. You knew they were coming. And this hides them in plain sight. So he's using humans to make them, putting them in this sinister virus. And he's like, what they know is that they are joining something greater than themselves. And you love to see Val Cooper compares him to that asteroid in the sky that killed the dinosaurs. I love also the chat room line here, keeping it consistent with what they would say in the 90s. Very nice touch. It was also wild seeing Sebastian's mom showing the X-Men his painting of the final dream. And you see a Sentinel there, but also all of these Prime Sentinels around him destroying these mutants. Now, she's revealed to be a Prime Sentinel, and that's when things start going crazy, because then we see Trish Tilby is with Beast, and she's going to be another one who turns, but you see a little Easter egg. She has a Kate coffee mug, which is Kate's coffee from Marvel Comics we've seen across from S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's very cool that Beast collaborated Cerebro to detect the Prime Sentinels, but when he's doing that and using it for that, that's when they all start turning, and we get a great classic Beast line, "Oh, my stars and garters." What was also wild when you're seeing all these humans show themselves as Prime Sentinels was when this family, the parents turned and the kids didn't. So that must have went horrifying after that. And we'll see Trish Tilby turns. She's crazy Sentinel here. And Wolverine is a great line. I've been waiting for more funny Wolverine lines from the original show, and this one delivered where he's like, "I gotta talk to Hank about his taste in woman." And Morph gets a great moment here as Juggernaut. And then Jubilee and Sunspot are confronting people in the mall like this, but Jubilee's got a new outfit under her regular outfit, and she has a great line, "I'm totally done with malls." So that is referencing, of course, the beginning of this show, of the animated series of Jubilee fighting Sentinels in a mall. Just like Game of Thrones with weddings, it's Jubilee in a mall is always bad news. And I love the action here. I love Wolverine gets his action moment, because I know the big Wolverine fans wanted more Wolverine here, and it really delivers here. They gave him a lot of that time in the spotlight, and he's slashing through the prime Sentinels in the sky was incredible. And then it was chilling to cut to the Sentinels just standing over Rogue in her bed, and you see one of them says, "Why resist the inevitable?" And Wolverine goes, "Lady, I got 6 reasons why." And then Nightcrawler says, "No, mein friend, 9." And he brings out the swords. That was like an "are you kidding me" moment. That was so amazing to see Nightcrawler and Wolverine just slice up these Prime Sentinels while they're protecting Rogue. Amazing. And another moment right after I loved was poor Jubilee is upset that everyone can fly but her, and she tries to fly off the roof with her fireworks, and it totally fails, and Sunspot saves her. A great way to reveal Sunspot being able to fly, and she says, "You too?" That was great. But see, what's wild is they land into the charity event of Roberto's mom, and you see that she betrays them. She lets these Prime Sentinels that are clearly suspicious and evil take them, and she's still more worried about her reputation than protecting her son. And then when we go to what's happening in the Blackbird with Jean, Cable, and Cyclops, I love now we get this distant, but it is a motherly connection with Jean and Cable. Little moment of a mom going, "Come on, use a seatbelt to him," and having her powers put a seatbelt on him was great. And it was such great visuals with the Blackbird in the rain, with the Prime Sentinels in front of them. I was like, my jaw dropped at that. And the X Porsche coming out was so great. Cyclops having a great line, "Let's show these toasters why you don't screw with the Summers." And it was just awesome to see Cable, Cyclops, and Jean work together. Just amazing. And of course, when we see Sebastian arrive to the mansion, I love, of course, he has the statue of Atlas on his car, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, of course. But Sinister lets him know that Cooper let Magneto out. And this is where Val says to Bastion, "You're a monster." And he's like, "I was born this way." That was a chilling villain line. That was great. And Val has amazing monologue here, saying how no one is really shocked. We always end up in the same ugly place, and talking about how everything's just circular here. And Magneto knows us better than Charles ever did. And then I love the Newton Brothers music here. That is that like chanting. They just come through with the music. So great. And Val has the line in the episode where she says Magneto was right, and Magneto's tapping into his power here in the North Pole, which was just insane. And then it leads to an insane cameo that had a lot of people probably screaming, which is Spider-Man here. And we get to see Silver Samurai, who's great too. And we see he lets loose Omega Red. So this crushes all the Prime Sentinels, and Wolverine's like, "Magneto actually did it." And Morph's like, "What, saved our hides?" And he's like, "No, declared war." So this is where he's like, "Where's the professor when you need him?" And right on cue, Professor X crash lands, and he says, "To me, my X-Men." And then Beast, Cyclops, Jean, and Storm show up around him. Unbelievable. Like, total chills down my spine. That was just possibly my favorite just moment of the whole season so far. And leading up to that, 8 episodes to that end there. Wow, what an amazing cliffhanger, and what an amazing setup for this first part of this 3-part finale. I don't think you could do it any better to get you hyped for the next 2 episodes. And to have it now that Magneto is going to be the ultimate Magneto we know, that's angry now at humans and is going to be the bigger threat. Now, it might feel quick that Bastion ended like this, but he's not really over yet. He's still alive. We got to see what his reaction to all this is. So I think it's just that kind of effect where his Prime Sentinel plan didn't work out, but I think there's going to be clearly more of him fighting up against Magneto in the next episode, and I'm excited to see that. And you still have Sinister around as well, and I think it's just going to set up something absolutely wild. And it's a good way to have Magneto turn like this to set up, it makes sense for Professor X now to be back in control and have that classic battle between Professor X and Magneto. So I'm really excited now to see Professor X lead the X-Men again. This is going to be awesome. And to see Storm come back, I cannot wait. So I am giving this setup episode 9.7. Excellent. And I just wish maybe we got a little explanation more earlier in the season or during that Professor X episode of the X-Men knowing about Charles being alive and then just kind of figuring that all out through Jubilee's line in this episode. But other than that, I really love this episode. It's so exciting, and it's one I feel like you can just watch over and over again. It's so much fun with great writing, great action, and just seeing team ups you've always waited for. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond as many as I can. Please subscribe. I'm so close to 1,000 subs. I can use all the help I can get to get monetized, and I'll see you next time.